Alright, so that's the body of the quiver cut out. It's 12 inches across the top, 10 inches at the bottom. And essentially, the way it works is it's just going to roll up like that. Essentially, you can see what the body of the quiver will look like. Just like that. And it'll get stitched up across the back like this one, and then on the inside we have this piece here that we're going to cut, and this is going to be a back bracing for stitching on the back side to reinforce that. And then also we're going to cut out these overlays here, mainly for decoration, on the bottom and on the top. And as you can see, I've done a two-tone. I went brown with this and kind of a burgundy with this. I'll probably do the same thing with that one. And there's a little decorative hardware there. I showed you that earlier that I'll be putting on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out those overlays. That'll be the decorative hardware. It'll go here and across here. This is the top overlay, and right here, I don't know if you can see the markings, it comes here and down, so there's an interior angle here. So to cut into that, I'm going to use my 13/64 punch, set it right up against that. Punch out a little hole that I can cut to, so I don't have a ragged interior edge there. Do the same thing on this one. That'll give me a point to cut to without messing up the leather. Alright, there's the 4 main components for the quiver we're going to make. It's the main body here, top overlay, bottom overlay, so this is essentially going to go right there. Notice I made it a 1/4 inch wider. I can trim to fit if necessary. Same with the top. It'll just be rolled up. This will be the backing on the lace for the back side to reinforce it. So we'll go just like that to strengthen and reinforce the lacing. So now that we got our 4 pieces cut out, we're going to mark them out for punching. We got to punch all the holes for everything. Okay, so the way we're going to lay out our line for the hole punching is we're going to come in 3/8 of an inch from the edge all the way around. So I'll use my compass, set it to 3/8, and I'm just going to take it on the side here. Just run it right down the side of my leather. And now I have a line all around the perimeter 3/8 of an inch in. And that's where I'll be punching my holes. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this piece, but before I do, I'm going to find out where this line meets here. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing here to run a 3/8 up and over. over. I'm going to run my line out. And then off that line, I'm going to find my 3/8. Just run it right up, run it right down. And right across the top. Same thing for the bottom. Alright, so we got our punch line drawn around the perimeter of each of our pieces. On the inside here, we're going to be using our wax cord along here and along here. All along the perimeter, we're going to be using our leather lace. So with the wax cord, we're going to set our punch holes at 1/4 inch on center all the way down. And for our leather lace, we're going to set our punch holes at 3/4 of an inch on center. Simple enough. We're just going to walk it off and dent it. Make a nice indent with each pass. So we're just going to walk it all the way around like that. You can see the holes right here. Those are where I'm going to punch, and that's for the wax cord. So I'm going to go ahead and punch those out and then draw out the lines for the leather lace, or draw out the markings for the leather lace, and then I'll punch those out and then I'll show you what that looks like. I'll kind of hold everything in place while I mark off the outside perimeter. I'm going to take a little blue tape. I got the center lined up here. I've already punched out the inside areas. I'm just going to lay that there. I'm going to take this piece. Okay, so all of the areas I need to punch have been marked out. Remember, the perimeter is the lacing. So the lacing is going to go around the perimeter. And the waxed cord is going to go on the interior. And for the waxed cord, we have a 1/16 punch that we're going to use to punch these holes. And for the lace, we have a 5/32 punch that we're going to use for these outside holes. Now remember, I said this was a backing, reinforced backing. So when I go to punch these holes, I have a center line drawn on my backing. So I'm just going to lay it there, and then I'll punch straight through backing as well as the front of the leather. So when I do this side, and then when I do this side over here, I'll just reverse it and do the same thing. So there's no mystery to the punching. Basically, let me turn this cutting board over so my wife doesn't kill me jacking up the cutting surface. Simple enough. We're just going to line up on our hole. Take our hammer, give it a good whack, and work it out. There's our first hole. Just walk it all the way around, wherever the 1/16 inch holes need to be, wherever the 5/32 holes need to be. Now when you initially punch it, your holes are going to look large, but that's just the leather being swelled out by the outside diameter of the punch. It'll actually shrink back down. Alright, so here's where we're at. I started the project at 6:30, it's now about 8:30, so I got about 2 hours in. As you can see, the holes have been punched, These are for the wax cord, these are for the leather lace. Punched them all the way through, held the overlays in place using the tape. Go ahead and peel that off. So now the next step in the process is to go ahead and stain all of my pieces the colors that I want them. So I'm going to go with a burgundy on the body and a brown on the overlays. Alright, all of our pieces are cut and punched and ready to be stained. We have the body of the quiver here. We have the bottom overlay here. Top overlay. The backing for stitching up the back. And then we have our bottom, which is going to go under here. And cutting this to size isn't really a big deal. You don't have to be a math major or anything to figure out what it is. Basically, you know that your bottom is 10 inches across, so you know that your circumference, once this has been cupped, what we're going to do is we're going to shape this so it makes a cup. And I'll show that a little later. But you want to have a 10-inch circumference here after it's cupped. So when it's cupped, the outside diameter will be 10 inches, and it just slip right in. And the way you find the diameter of this is you see, basically I've made two circles, and my inside circle would be 1.25 inches and 1.25 inches, so I figured out the diameter on that. So that gave me half a diameter here, half a diameter here, and then the diameter from here to here and from here to here. Added it all up and it came out to 10 inches. So I'll show you when I cup this what I mean about the inside diameter being 10 inches, because this is going to be cupped. So basically the sides are going to come up 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch. So whatever measurement you come up with to make 10 inches on this particular one, you'll add 1/2 inch out all the way around for it. So now what I want to do before I actually stain anything is I want to clean my leather, and I just use a washcloth with warm water. And basically what that does is it removes any dirt or material on it, any oils, and then it also kind of evens out the leather, and I think it makes the leather a little more receptive to the dye. And I'm going to be using this Bordeaux, which is basically nothing more than a reddish brown on the body. And then for all my accessory pieces, my belt included, I'm going to be using a medium brown. I think it gives a nice two-tone contrast. After both of those have dried, we'll come back and put this clear matte finish on it, and then we'll buff it with some newspaper. So, first step, clean the leather. For those of you that have a significant other, make sure you put some newspaper down so you don't get yourself in trouble. I like to glove up, because this is, after all, a skin dye that we're using. Just shake it up real good. And this is just a, it's called a sponge cloth. It's like a cross between a cloth and a sponge. I just like to use it. I'll fold it over like that. Take my stain, squirt a good amount on there. Just start kind of rubbing it in a circular motion. So now I've got the body stained, got the edges stained. I'll let that sit up and dry. I'll come back and hit it with the matte gloss, which will seal it and also give me a surface that I'll be able to give a nice little buff to with the newspaper, so it'll put a nice little luster on it. There's the body of it done. And I'll do the accessory pieces. I don't do the backs of any of the leather except for the belt. Only the belt. I'll hit the back of that with some dye, just because that part's exposed sometimes, but everything else, the back side of the leather is all tucked away and hidden. Alright, everything's all stained up. We'll just let that dry, and then we'll come back and we'll throw the clear mat on it. After that dries, we'll give it a quick buff with some newspaper and kind of bring out the luster and the shine in the leather. Alright, all the pieces are stained. It's been sitting for about an hour. Basically, I won't eat dinner. Pretty well dried up. Everything feels good. I use the matte finish and just rub it on. Basically like I did the stain, but I won't have to press as hard. Just kind of rub it on nice and even. And then once that dries, I'll buff it out with the newspaper. Now when I apply this, some of the dye will rub off as I'm applying this, so you'll see that kind of coming up. But just basically a nice even circle applying. This really brings out the color and the shine once you buff it up. Alright, all the pieces have been covered with the clear mat. We'll give that about an hour or so to dry, and we'll come back in and buff it out with some newspaper and kind of show you the contrast. Alright, so here's everything. It's dry now. You can see it's got kind of like a film on it from the clear mat. So we'll buff that out with just some wadded up ball of newspaper. You see it starts to get a little shine to it. Just keep doing that till it's nice and buffed.